Martha Winfield had lived in her quiet countryside home for more than 3 decades. The small property was more than just a house to her, it was a lifetime of memory. Her late husband had planted the trees that shaded the yard, her children had grown up chasing one another across the grass, and every flower bed had been carefully arranged by her own hands over the years. It was the kind of place where every corner held a story. Now in her later years, Martha spent most mornings tending her beloved garden. Roses lined the walkway, lavender bushes swayed in the breeze, and neat rows of vegetables grew in the back plot. Caring for the land gave her peace and purpose. And always at her side was Max. Max, her loyal German shepherd, had been part of the family for years. Intelligent, protective, and deeply attached to Martha, he followed her almost everywhere. He waited outside the kitchen door while she cooked, lay beside her chair in the evenings, and patrolled the yard with proud determination. To Martha, Max was more than a pet. He was company, comfort, and family. That is why she noticed immediately when something about him changed. At first, it seemed small. Max began pacing near the far end of the garden, close to an old patch of grass near the back fence. He would sniff the ground intensely, circle the same spot, then stare at it as if listening for something hidden below. Martha assumed he had caught the scent of a rabbit or mole. But then the digging started. One afternoon, while Martha was trimming roses, Max suddenly lunged toward the patch of earth and began clawing at it with wild intensity. Dirt flew behind him in showers. He dug so furiously that Martha dropped her shears in surprise. "Max, stop that!" Usually obedient, the dog ignored her completely. He kept digging, panting heavily, his paws moving faster and faster as though every second mattered. Martha rushed over and pulled him back by the collar. His body trembled with urgency. The moment she let go, he strained to return to the hole. That was unlike him. Max was disciplined and responsive. If he disobeyed, it meant something had his full attention. Still, Martha scolded him and filled the hole back in. The next morning, it was worse. The hole had doubled in size overnight. Fresh, piles of dirt surrounded it, and Max stood over the crater, barking at the ground. His paws were muddy and scraped raw. Alarmed, Martha brought him inside. But Max paced from room to room, whining and scratching at the back door. For the next several days, the pattern continued. Whenever he was outside, he raced back to the same spot and dug with desperate force. If Martha stopped him, he returned the moment her back was turned. If she blocked the hole with stones, he moved them. If she covered it with boards, he ripped them aside. Soon his paws were bleeding. Martha's frustration turned to fear. Dogs could behave strangely for many reasons: illness, anxiety, hidden pests. But this felt different. Max was not playful or mischievous. He seemed urgent, almost panicked. Unsure what to do, Martha called the person she trusted most for practical help, her grandson David. David arrived that afternoon, tall, practical, and good with tools. He had helped Martha maintain the property for years. When she explained what had been happening, he laughed lightly at first. Sounds like Max found himself a mole. But when he saw the hole and the condition of Max's paws, the smile faded. The dog stood nearby, tense and focused, eyes locked on the disturbed patch of ground. David crouched beside the hole. It was deeper than he expected, several feet across, sharply tunneled in the center, with loose earth collapsing inward around the edges. "Strange," he muttered. Still, assuming it was an animal burrow, David decided to block access properly. He gathered spare lumber from the shed and built a heavy frame over the area, reinforcing it with stakes and fencing. "That should do it," he said. Max watched every movement. The moment David stepped back, the dog threw himself at the barrier. "Max!" The shepherd barked furiously, clawing at the wood, pacing around it, searching for any weakness. Then he began chewing. By the next morning, he had gnawed through part of the fence. Martha was horrified. David was unsettled. Dogs can be stubborn, but this was something else. Max was not simply trying to dig. He was trying to reach something. Whatever lay beneath that patch of ground had captured his senses completely. David made a decision. He would investigate himself. He locked Max safely inside the house despite the dog's frantic barking at the window. Then he grabbed a shovel, gloves, and work boots. "If he smells something down there," David told Martha, "I want to know what it is." He removed the damaged barrier and stepped carefully into the shallow pit Max had created. Then he began to dig. At first, it was exhausting but ordinary work. The soil was dense clay, wet and stubborn. Each shovel load came up heavy. He expected to uncover a dead animal, a broken pipe, or maybe the remains of an old drain line. An hour passed, then another. The hole deepened. Martha watched nervously from the patio while Max barked from inside the house. David kept going. Several feet down, the soil texture changed. Pockets of loose earth appeared where the clay should have been compact. Some sections crumbled too easily. That bothered him. Ground doesn't normally hollow out for no reason. He dug more carefully. Then it happened. Clang. His shovel struck something beneath the dirt, not rock, not root, but a hollow surface that echoed strangely. David froze. He cleared more soil with his hands, revealing dark material below. Pipe. Old pipe, but it looked wrong. Cracked, sunken, warped. As he scraped away additional dirt, the earth around the pipe suddenly sagged inward several inches. A foul smell burst upward. David recoiled instantly. Then he saw it. Beneath the fractured pipe was not solid earth but open space. A cavity. Large. The ground under Martha's lawn had been washing away from beneath the surface. "Grandma!" he shouted. "Run! Get back!" Martha, startled by the terror in his voice, hurried backward from the garden. David scrambled out of the hole just as part of one wall collapsed inward with a wet sucking sound. He grabbed Martha's arm and pulled her toward the driveway. "What is it?" she cried. "The sewer line," he gasped. "The ground's hollow underneath." They called emergency services immediately. Within an hour, utility workers, environmental inspectors, and local authorities arrived. After examining the exposed section, the truth emerged. An aging sewage line running beneath the property had fractured long ago. Wastewater had been leaking slowly underground for months, possibly years. The escaping liquid had eroded the surrounding soil bit by bit, carrying earth away and leaving an expanding void beneath the lawn. From above, the grass still looked normal, but underneath, a sinkhole had formed. Worse still, decomposing sewage had produced methane gas, which seeped upward through the weakening ground. That explained Max's obsession. Dogs possess an extraordinary sense of smell, tens of thousands of times more sensitive than humans. Max had likely detected the methane and contaminated moisture long before any visible sign appeared. He knew something was terribly wrong beneath that spot. Authorities surveyed the area and delivered chilling news. The cavity had spread dangerously close to the foundation of the house. The soil supporting sections of the structure was compromised. According to one engineer, collapse could have happened at any time, perhaps triggered by heavy rain, vibration, or even normal foot traffic. The property was immediately declared unsafe. Martha was ordered to evacuate. Standing beside the ambulance lights and utility trucks, she stared at the home where she had spent most of her life. "How close?" David asked quietly. The engineer didn't hesitate. "Minutes? Hours? Impossible to say, but very close." Martha looked toward the house, then toward Max in the car. The dog sat upright in the back seat, alert and calm now for the first time in days, as if his mission were complete. That night, Martha stayed with David and his family. She could barely sleep. Again and again, she imagined what might have happened if Max had been punished more harshly, if David had ignored the behavior, if the sinkhole had opened while she was gardening, or worse, while she slept. The next morning, crews returned with excavation equipment. As they peeled back the lawn, the scale of the danger became visible. Huge sections of earth had no support beneath them. In places, only a thin crust of turf remained over contaminated air pockets and sludge. One worker shook his head. "You step in the wrong place," he said. "You disappear." News of the incident spread quickly through the neighborhood. People came by asking if Martha was all right. Many wanted to see Max. The same dog some neighbors had once complained barked too much was suddenly hailed as a hero. But Martha needed no convincing. She sat beside him on the porch of David's house, stroking his ears with tears in her eyes. "I thought you were ruining my garden," she whispered. Max leaned gently against her leg. Repairs took weeks. The damaged sewage line had to be replaced entirely. Contaminated soil was removed. Engineers stabilized the ground and reinforced areas near the foundation. During that time, Martha stayed away from the property. When she finally returned, much of the garden was gone. The roses had been uprooted, the vegetable beds destroyed. The lawn was a construction zone of fresh earth and gravel. She stood silently for a long moment. Then Max trotted ahead and sat beside the repaired patch of ground. Martha laughed through tears. "Well," she said, "you were right." Neighbors later helped replant the garden. David built raised beds safer and farther from utility lines. Friends brought flowers. Someone made a small wooden sign that read, "Max's Garden." It was placed near the back fence. Over time, the story became something of a local legend. Children asked to meet the dog who saved the house. Visitors brought treats. Even utility workers stopped by months later to check on him. Yet Max himself remained unchanged. He still followed Martha from room to room, still lay by her chair in the evening, still patrolled the yard, though now Martha paid very close attention whenever he stopped to sniff something suspicious. Experts later explained that dogs often detect things humans miss: gas leaks, electrical faults, illness, storms, even subtle structural problems through scent and vibration. But for Martha, no expert explanation was necessary. She had seen it herself. Her dog knew danger was there, and when no one listened, he dug until they did. Sometimes loyalty does not look graceful. Sometimes it is muddy paws, torn fences, ruined flower beds, and relentless barking. Sometimes help arrives in a form we first mistake for trouble. Martha often retold the story afterward to anyone who asked. She would begin with annoyance. "That dog destroyed my garden." Then pause, smile, and add, "to save my life." As for Max, he never seemed interested in the praise. He only wanted what he had always wanted, a safe home, his favorite person nearby, and perhaps an occasional biscuit. But in the Winfield family, one truth became permanent. Whenever Max acted strangely, everyone listened.